Hey, greetings, Questers. Let's try this once again. Sometimes the Questline Tavern doors are a little stuck. Our bouncers are a little too, what's the word, aggressive. So, welcome back to the Questline Tavern. Let me share my screen so that people can see what I'm actually doing. This is, it's always sad when there's technical difficulties like that. Welcome back to the Questline Tavern. This is episode 5. And I'm really glad that people are here to join me. Thank you, Grim, for helping me with the technical difficulties. The refresh seemed to work just fine. That was really rather interesting. I've not seen that happen before, but Cloudflare has been having problems today, so it might be related to that. So, what are we going to be doing today? Today, we're going to take a break from the Pathfinder 2E game type that we'd been working on. And I want to talk about the next kind of major-ish release. I tend to follow what's called semverse, semantic versioning. And it follows a general pattern of, major changes, minor changes, and patch fixes. So right now, because I still haven't technically released 1.0, because I have some other big features that I still plan on doing before I truly hit 1.0, which is going to be my full release. But it's taken me many years to get there. So I kind of do a semi semantic versioning where I kind of offset everything to one extra decimal point. So it's 0.8.9.0, and that's enough for the technical jargon. The idea was, for years I had wanted to implement the dynamic vision and walls feature that so many people have asked for. And I was always hesitant to do it in that I wanted to make sure that when I did it, it came out in a way that felt pretty natural and felt relatively simplistic so that it didn't overwhelm the game master when they were building any walls or any sort of dynamic lighting. And it wasn't until I met some new friends. I met Grimwood Games and DM Tales and Neil, who's a friend of them. And they had kind of asked about that. And it really kind of pushed me in a direction where I hadn't really expected to jump into. But when I kind of had the discussion at Grim's channel, which, by the way, if you want to go see Grimwood Games, you should go check out their YouTube channel. It's pretty awesome. They do a lot of wonderful interviews, and they do a lot of game design and games themselves, and it's a lot of fun to watch. So when they'd asked about dynamic, or they were discussing dynamic vision and dynamic walls in general, it really kind of made me think about something that they had said, in that I could actually separate the walls entirely from the dynamic vision system, because I really wanted just a basic wall system that would prevent movement. And oftentimes players will put their tokens down on a map and they'll move their tokens immediately off the map. Hi, Anna. Nice to see you. Thanks for joining me. And so it really made me laugh when I thought about the basic mechanic of, okay, well, we should really try to prevent people from, sending their tokens into the void. And I've actually built in tools over the years to actually, re-center the map and do other things that help people get back to the center of the world and be able to kind of find what they were doing. But walls could have solved those problems probably a long time ago. But again, I was just reticent to implement something kind of half-baked. Now, what does that mean? I added walls. And then because I tend to do this when I get really involved in a heavy piece of code, I tend to go overboard. And then I decided to do dynamic vision on top of it. And so not only did I do the walls, but I added pretty much all the necessary tools to add dynamic vision, and which is dynamic fog of war. And there will probably be some more tooling built around it in the future to kind of help some pieces. But I really wanted to get this out to everybody so that it can be used, get some feedback on it. I have a very strong belief that feedback doesn't happen unless you actually give it to people and then you talk to them. So when people build features and then they never really talk to people about it, you can't really iterate on the idea of constant improvement. So What that really leads to is the 8.9 release, and there's a lot of things that I did in this release. I've been kind of baking a bunch of different things under the covers. You know, I've been working on the whole theming system for character sheets. There's been a kind of a semi long-term bug that's been going on that some of the character importers haven't been working right for the D&D 2024 stat blocks. So I have worked on some of that. I have added some extra pieces to the homepage, which I'll show you guys today, which will make it a little easier to find games if you have a number of games. As you can see, I have a lot of battle map improvements. The game type editor, I've added some styling and theming to the tooltips, which you'll get to see today. I kind of previewed that last week or the last episode, and you'll see a little bit more of that. And some of the basic attributes and basic skills stuff that's there. And then also a couple of bug fixes that, needed to be taken care of. So let's dive right into it. So let me pull up my notes here so I can kind of keep myself on track. So we'll dive into the main piece of how does the dynamic walls work? Or how do walls work, and then how does the dynamic vision work on top of it? My goal was to keep it relatively simple. And what you can see here is when you bring up the Fog of War, and I'll get into this little tooltip. No, I did not move the tooltip. This is a new feature that is available to everybody. When you go into the Fog of War, I have moved some of the buttons around. And what you will see is there are two modes now. There is manual fog mode and there's dynamic vision mode. Simply clicking on either one of these will enable it. This is the old way that that I originally implemented, which is just a manual fog mode. You can just, create, take a polygon, draw it around, clear it out. There you go. No big deal. Same thing with the rectangles. It's very easy to clear your Fog of War manually, and you can still do that, no problem. Resetting it is right underneath it, right there, very easy. And that's a very clean and simple way to manage your manual Fog of War, which is, again, always the idea to keep it simple, stupid. One of the things that you'll see that I've added is this new active toolbar. That shows you what this is. This used to be a red bar that was sitting at the top of the screen, and I've moved it and to be something a little bit more functional. And it actually comes with their own little heavier tooltips so that you can kind of see what and how to use these individual tools. Oftentimes, people aren't aware of the shortcut keys. Like if I'm trying to do manual fog and I make a rectangle, I can actually hold down the shift key while I'm doing that, and it will let me pan the map without actually drawing the Fog of War. So that's a good way to do it. I can also hold down the control key to hide the Fog of War. So those are, very useful tools, but unless somebody knows of them, it's hard to do. So this new little tooltip here gives you the opportunity to see the tools in action, how they work, and hopefully I'll be able to make those pretty robust. And as people see this, if you have any suggestions, please let me know. I'd be happy to update some of the text and make sure that it covers a little bit more so that people are aware of the tools in a better way. When you hide the help, it will only hide that specific tool. So each tool has their own little help section. And so you can see more what's going on with random text. Okay. And you can kind of see what's going on with each of the individual tools. And when you don't need that anymore, that help section, you can just close it and it'll go away. But if you ever want to reference it again, you can just click this and it'll go back up. If you want to cancel out of your tool, the X button will do the trick, and it does the same thing as the X button did up here. I will also show that inside of your map settings, if you go in to start editing a layer, you will see that it shows you the same thing, editing the base layer, and it will tell you, how to use the layer and how to drag images from the asset gallery or, whatever you want to kind of make your map. Again, you can close that. So the Dynamic Fog of War, the dynamic vision mode, will now, as I turn it on, you'll see that I actually have some of the vision already enabled. And this is from the game master's perspective. So there is you can preview this as the player or as the game master. And when I click on the player preview, it will show me exactly what the player sees. And this includes if there are tokens on the map that belong to the game master and you don't want to actually see and you want to see what the players really see, turning this on will actually hide the tokens under the map so that you will not see through the eyes of the tokens that a game master owns only. So it's a really useful tool to actually turn that on when you really need it. And I'll show you an example here in a second. So if I were to come down and I were to take one of the monsters I have, a skeleton here, and this has some dynamic vision already enabled on it. And you can see it opens up this space and I can see that dynamic vision. But now when I hit the player preview, it actually hides that straight away and I can't actually see that. As a game master, I can still click on it. I could still technically move it off the page. I could do whatever I want because as a game master, I can still do those things. But I can't see it because I'm looking through the player's eyes. Now, the player's eyes is group-based. So all players that exist in your game, when you turn this on, you will see through every one of their tokens' eyes, not as like a singular. I can't select an individual token and look at their preview. That may be a feature I add sometime in the future. So that being said, when I show the Fog of War, and I can actually see as my game master, I also too have a vision for my tokens that I can see. And this can be useful in a number of ways. If I want to just kind of know if my tokens actually see the player tokens and that kind of stuff. But you don't really have to use it if you don't want to. So the really cool part is that if as a player or as a game master, I actually still want to reveal an area to the players, I can still use my manual tools. I can come right over here and I can paint just like I did before, and it's going to reveal this to the players permanently, and they will be able to see that no matter where they are on the map. So this is a really simple and straightforward way of, yes, dynamic vision mode is enabled, but I can still show all the players what's going on. And if I ever want to fix it or undo it, I can just reset the fog again and it will go away. So it's, again, about as simple as it comes for, ease of click and ease of use. The next piece is when tokens move, players that have multiple tokens, can they see both token vision? Players that have yes. So players, if they have multiple tokens assigned to them, they will see essentially the full vision of those tokens that's related to them. If a player, when you look at it from a player's perspective, the player only sees tokens they have access to. So if another player is private, if another player is protected and it's assigned to somebody else, they won't see through that person's vision. Now, I do plan on adding some what is called shared vision. Well, I'll have to double check that. I might have actually enabled that already. But there was an idea of shared vision versus non-shared vision, and that's going to come up to the GM to set that. Either way, I plan on setting that up as a toggle for the game master to control in the long run. So let's talk about, let me see here. Let me look at my notes again. Right. So what you see here is that if I have these tokens and I can see pretty much everywhere on the map, and if I want to turn it so that I can't see everything, obviously some maps play really well with the idea of, I want to be able to see pretty much anything within my vision, right? Because my token can generally see everywhere. Maybe it's daytime, whatever, and I want to be able to see throughout the whole space. I definitely want a situation where some token, like some maps are actually very much like a dungeon crawl, and I want to be able to move through that dungeon and only be able to see the exact things that I want them to see when they, when they round corners and things like that. So when we talk about a map like this, which is very much open-ended, you can put some tooling in, or sorry, you can put some walls in that will let you block off some of these, like maybe you want to block off this tower, but that might be a hindrance to the actual gameplay, and you might not actually want to do that for a map like this. So I'm going to show you the basic setup for, here's the general vision. Like you can see the arc of vision for the tokens that I have. And then I also want to be able to show a different map. We'll load up a different map. I'll have to say thank you to Cebu, as I've been using one of his maps as a demonstration for, a good dungeon crawl style map. And you can see immediately that I have the dynamic vision enabled. And as I move my token, my vision is going to actually change in real time. Other VTTs do this. The way I've implemented it is to try to be, one, as performant as possible, and two, to see things move very easily and quickly without a lot of hiccups. And one of the things that you'll see is that I have a lot of different places that are kind of open and invisible. But if I view from the player's perspective, I can see that this is what my players would be able to see at any given time. And again, this makes it so that the dungeon crawl becomes much more, revealed, and that makes it a much more fun instance for players to, go through various pieces and make it so that their dungeon is much more alive. So, I am still working through some bugs and some things like that. So you might see some things that as we go through, after I release and we go through some stuff, I will be fixing stuff and improving stuff. So it'll hopefully get a lot better if people notice any sort of weird glitchy problems. So if I refresh the page, it's mostly because I'm just trying to see if clearing out any sort of issues. Like I could see there's a little bit of lag switching through the maps, which is something I'll have to take a look at. All right. So now that I have the dynamic vision enabled, you'll see a couple of you'll see an extra little thing down here called soft edges. Thanks, Grim. I think it's pretty good, and I definitely think it can be a little better. But I'm looking forward to being on a where I like to have it is, essentially 60 frames a second is what I aim for pretty much everything. If I can keep and maintain that, that's where I'm aiming for. But I have this extra tool called soft edges. This will probably cause a performance hit. And if you use the soft edges, what it does is it will simply kind of blur out the edges of all the lines to make things a little less crisp. And it will make things feel a little more natural in terms of shadowing. And I found that this was kind of a cool little effect. It's a little bit more of a performance hit, but it seems to work pretty well, and it makes it look really nice. There's also a secondary thing, which I'll go into in a moment when I talk about the dynamic vision, which allows you to further kind of customize some of that. Now, the way that, and that's just the dynamic vision, that's dynamic vision mode. The wall section, which I'll get into in a few minutes, has a lot of tooling in there that lets you kind of very quickly build out the walls in the way that you want them. But each token, if I were to, let's say, take Dalzane here, also, if you hold down the shift key and you double click on your token, it will open up your character sheet here instead of when you double click and opening up your character sheet over the battle map. So this is great for when you're in the middle of playing the game and you're really just focused on, changing the details or, rolling actions or what have you. this is a good way to do it. But if you're actually trying to change some of the settings, a good tool trick is to double click and hold shift, and it will actually open this up, which gives you access to the settings page, and it makes it a little faster to get to where you're going. You will see this new section down at the bottom called Vision. This is how the token sees the world. And the way this works is you will see in parentheses the scaled vision based on whatever your game settings are. So if I were to go into game settings here and go down to default map scale options, right? So 1 unit equals 5 feet. So for every grid square, it's going to multiply all this so that you can really see what the actual range is. But the tokens themselves will actually have in units, and then it will show you a multiplicative so that you can actually kind of, adjust as necessary. You have two pieces. You have your bright range and your dim range. Bright range is you get full visibility in that within that amount. The dim range is everything beyond that will actually kind of shade everything out by about 50% and make it a little darker, make it a little bit more immersive so that you're doing that. And you can see here that if I were to reduce, let's go down to 3, and I'm going to go down to 6. Actually, it's kind of go to 2 and 5. And you'll see that my vision is reduced quite significantly. And what I have, though, is this token has what I call tags. And this is going to be a way to affect kind of gameplay with vision. And this here, so if you have the dark vision tag attached to the character, it will actually treat bright range and dim range as essentially one full range. Now, if I were to turn that off and get rid of dark vision, you're going to see that my character, oh, there's a bug. Got to get rid of that. That's going to get annoying. I will have to fix that. That's the tooltip doesn't want to disappear. But you'll see that I have, let me turn off the soft edges so that it makes it a little clearer what we see here. You can see that he has, maybe I might have to refresh that. Give me a second. Let me refresh that one more time. Because the token, I don't think, recognized that I got rid of dark vision. All right. So you can kind of see, and it's a little harder to see because of the hallway. Yeah, let me move the token here to the room. There you go. Actually, let me move him to a different room that actually has a lot of space. It'll make more sense. As a game master, if you ever hold down the Alt key, you can free move a token anywhere. All right. So now you can kind of see the vision ranges a little better. So, yeah, I can show it in player view as well. So you can kind of see I have these two different vision ranges, right? I have my bright and my dim. And what that gives me a pretty good indication of like, oh, I can actually see what's outside of my bright range and what's in dim. So maybe it's obscured. Thanks, Wes. I appreciate it. I'm glad you were able to come in and yell walls. The range on the character, if I come back in here and I and if I were to refresh this and I were to bring this down just a little bit, you can see how it reduces quite a bit. And there's a nice little feature that I added, which is called use smoothing, which will actually put them into a gradient so that if you want a little bit more realism, I can save that, and you'll see that it actually kind of dims everything out and gives you a nice kind of shaded effect based on that kind of vision range. So what that means is that you kind of, again, as a game master and as a player, you can kind of control a little bit of these things. Again, a little bit more agency on how you see things. If I were to add dark vision back, you'll see that it immediately pops all the way full, and it doesn't have any sort of real smoothing because my dim range is, it's using my bright range and my dim range. So if I were to increase these, and you can kind of see that, and that's because dark vision lets me see to the fullest extent. And that is actually something I would love to do. That's something I want to add to the. That's why I added the tag system. Was that I want to be able to add things like with dark vision, it would actually like turn everything monochrome, or not necessarily monochrome, but grayscale, so that you could kind of get the impression as a player, like, hey, this is how I view the world outside of like a torch radius. I can see everything in color up close, but if I don't have a torch on or something like that. And that's going to be kind of a secondary part of the whole vision system, is the dynamic lighting that I will be adding, which will let people have like torches and will kind of do things like that. That's my point. But the tag system is kind of like the base structure of how I'm going to do that, so that as you do vision, you can add different tags to say, maybe you have tremor sense, or maybe you have this and you want to view the world in a different way. I thought that would be kind of a neat way to give game masters the ability to do that stuff. And fine. So let me get rid of dark vision so you can kind of see that again. So here, the final piece of the vision system is the view arc. So normally, maybe I'm going to say you have a 90-degree view arc, and I can save that, and you can actually see that the token can only see, that specific space. This is something that I plan on improving a little bit over time. Like, I don't want it to cut off the token's head. But this is also based off of, let me move this over here real quick. I'm going to select the token. And if I hit the F key, I can actually change the facing of my token, and you'll see that it just changes the facing of where I'm actually looking. And if I turn off player preview, you can see that it will just change that kind of stuff. And this is, a really fun tool if you want to use it for various tokens. Maybe you could use it for a trap, something like that, and be like, anything within this arc, you can see. That could be a really useful and fun thing. But that was just an option I thought people would enjoy. So that goes on to the vision for the individual characters. Now, tokens themselves can have also individual vision statistics, right? So I can go to an individual token and hit edit vision, and I can quite literally change the individual vision for that specific token. And you'll see that I have this thing down here. It says reset to character defaults, and I can close that. But if I were to move this token out of the way, you'll see that this individual token has a different view range than this other skeleton. So as a token, I can also individually control each one, but it's all defaulted based off of whatever shows up in this detail page here. So this is what it starts at, and then if you do any changes, it will modify that on the fly. And I can use the little mini menu, and I can go to edit vision, and then I can say reset to character defaults, and it will go right back. So it's a really good, useful way to kind of manage that. And that's vision. But vision doesn't work without walls. And the walls are what we really we're trying to implement in the beginning, and dynamic vision came out of it. Dynamic lighting will come later down the line to, kind of help adjust some of the vision pieces. But I think dynamic vision covers like 90% of what people are looking to do anyway, because oftentimes, even dynamic lighting can get really goofy, especially on maps that already have shadows and all kinds of stuff. It'll turn things weird. So I want to do dynamic lighting so that it seems to make sense rather than just kind of slapping a feature together. Now, walls. You'll notice that as I've been moving around, you probably have seen some of these, white lines that designate walls that exist here. And it's absolutely true. It works perfectly fine for how I can see the world. And you'll see, you see this white line here, but that's because if I go to manual fog mode, you'll see that I've revealed this area. I'll reset my fog and go back to dynamic. And you'll see that these pillars have a really nice effect, when I'm walking through, because my vision. And that's because of the walls. And to include, which is what I think Wes was really asking for in the beginning, and a lot of people have been asking for this, but is walls block token movement. And you can see that as I move my token around, I can bang it up against the walls and I can try to move it, and it will prevent me from doing, moving my token through a wall or outside of the range of which a player could actually go to. Like, I can't just skip this token over to the other wall. Now, aside from that, the Alt key, if you hold it down, does let you free move a token. And that applies to players too. And the reason I keep that open is because I think all people should have the ability to unstick themselves. If a token gets stuck somewhere, if they get lost, they should be able to hold down the Alt key and purposefully move their token to a location. I don't know if that could become a feature to turn on and off based on game master preference. But I feel it's pretty important to let people, again, have that agency to be able to fix themselves, because oftentimes something as simple as that. We're playing a trust-based game anyway, so I trust players to not abuse it. So the walls system, and let me go back to my other map. Actually, maybe we'll stay on this map and we'll just pick a new room. So the walls that exist, and you can see that I have them in some locations, but what I'll do is I'll turn off the dynamic vision mode for now so that we can just focus on the walls. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to paint a wall for this room because it's pretty straightforward and easy. And really what you're looking for is, I have two doors. I have one to the west, I have one to the north, and I have an open wall here. And the way the wall system works, there's this new icon for walls, and you have multiple tools. You have the draw wall tool, you have convert to portal, convert to non-blocking, add wall points, and edit wall points. And with the basic draw wall tool, you can create the basic outline of what you're trying to do. And if you need to remove points or add points, you can do that very easily using the other tools. So all we're going to do is we're going to click on draw wall. You will see that the little how to use pops up, tells you how to what to do to place them. Click the first point again, or click to place wall points. Then click the first point again to close the wall polygon and save it. Very similar to the Fog of War tool, where you're building a polygon. Now, the way I look at walls is that every wall should be a closed polygon. That means all sides should be closed. The reason why I do that is because it makes it so that the wall has a bounding area, and that helps for performance in the long run. And what I find is that if you were to place more walls in your map with smaller areas, your performance will probably be better in the long term, because you can actually do what's called bounds testing and say, hey, if my mouse is over this wall, I can prevent myself from checking on walls that are like way off on the other side of the map. It just helps speed through. So I'm only looking at 10, 15, 20 points rather than 5,000 points. It's a huge performance gain for something that for game masters can get into the habit of like building their dungeons by building small rooms at a time. It also keeps the focus on where you're kind of working on too. So you'll see I have a little dot that follows my mouse around. Again, I can use the shift key to pan my map while I'm doing this. It's not going to place anything. And I can also use the Alt key to disable the grid snap. So I can very easily do this if my grid snapping is enabled. And but for now, I'm just going to use the grid snap because it makes it simple. And what I'm going to do is I'll talk about the V key here and the right click. So if I'm placing my point and I accidentally place a point down here and I'm like, whoops, I didn't mean to do that. You can just hit the right mouse button and it will delete the last point. It's a great way to undo what you just did. Now, the V key or the space key will cycle the wall type. We have three different wall types. We have a blocking wall, we have a non-blocking wall, and we have a portal wall. Each of these conversion tools do the same thing. They convert to portal and convert to non-blocking, and allows you to essentially say, I want to take a wall segment and I'm going to make it so that it's a very simply, it either just doesn't block players or doesn't block light or anything like that. Or I want to make it a portal so that it can be toggled. And so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to do a simple blocking wall. I'm going to hit the V key. It's going to go to a non-blocking wall, which is not what I want. I want to go to a portal wall. I'm going to draw the portal. I'm going to go hit V again, and I'm going to go back to regular drawing. I'm going to go all the way to this point. I'm going to hit V again, go to the non-blocking wall because I don't want this to be blocked. V again twice more. And now I can just kind of paint my room. You'll see very quickly. Paint corners. And I'm going to stop here. I'm going to go back to my portal wall with the V key. Go back to my blocking wall, and I'm just going to go back to the check mark that ends my wall. And with that, I have now created a room. And it was that simple. This will now, if I put tokens in here, will respect the, let me pick up my token, use the Alt key to shift to go all the way over here. And if I turn dynamic lighting back on, you will see that the walls now appropriately block all light and my vision is appropriately done. I also have, as a player, the ability to, my portals aren't showing up. Where'd my, I broke something. I'll have to see if I can't fix that. Oh no. Huh. Okay. Well, there it is. That's okay. So there's a little bug that I got to fix here. So you could see as my tooltip showed up. I don't know where it's going. There it is. So when I have this portal open, I can actually double click this here, and any player who has access to this, including the game master, can double click this and it will close the door or close the portal. And it's really as simple as that. I can double click it to open it, double click it to close it. And it makes it pretty simple for players and game masters to manage that. Now, if you want to control the settings for that, what you can do is if I go into my map settings, you're going to see there's this whole new section here of all the walls that exist. And you can name them, you can delete them, you can hide them, you can do all kinds of stuff with them. You can convert the entire wall to non-blocking if you don't want to, have it affect any sort of vision or blocking or anything like that. But you'll see as I mouse around, I just have too many walls in this room. It would be better if I named them. You will see that it highlights the wall that I'm looking for. And in here, you'll see underneath this wall, I have two portals and I have a non-blocking wall. The non-blocking wall is something that you can very easily restore, and you can return it back to a standard segment and it will block all movement and do all those kind of things. And it makes it easy to kind of deal with it that way. You can rename it if you want to. And then the portals you can actually close and open by using the map settings if you want to. Again, I can rename it. I can delete them if I want to, and it'll just convert back to a regular wall. Now, what we want to do is we actually want to talk about the privacy. And the privacy, the visibility is public, and the activation is public. So here you can actually set that maybe I want the visibility to be public so everybody can see it, but I want the activation to be protected, and I only want myself and maybe Waffles is going to have access to this door. And so now when any other player comes over to work on this, we can very easily take this door and prevent players from double clicking on it to open it. Maybe it's a locked door for whatever reason, but it gives you a really good visual indication, just says you are unable to, manipulate this door. And that's a really simple and easy way to do it. You can also even hide the door. If you don't want players to be able to see it at all, you can turn off the visibility to it and they can't see that door at all. It's a great way to do things like secret doors and things like that. You can also, in the walls section, you can disable all walls immediately if you want to. That is a useful tool if you're trying to, maybe fix something. You can also do hide walls, which will, as you can see it's hidden every wall from view. So maybe I don't want it to show up on my map, but it still blocks and still does all the things that you expect it to. But the doors have their portals have their own visibility toggle. So maybe you only want to see the doors. Maybe you don't want to see them at all. And you can do that. So again, it just kind of puts the agency back into the game master's hands. But again, these are really simple and easy ways to manage this. Now, let's talk about some of the conversion tools because it might be easier to do that. So let's just kind of do this end cap down here. I'm going to turn off the fog of war so that I can see everything again. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to show my walls, and then I'm going to draw a wall, and I'm simply just going to paint a very simple L shape here and close that off. But if I created a wall and I wanted to turn this into like a portal, I can just use this convert to portal tool. And as soon as I do that, it converts that singular wall segment into a portal. And there you go. And then maybe I wanted to change it to a non-blocking wall. I can do that too. And you can see a non-blocking wall has this kind of dashed line look. So it's pretty easy to distinguish between what's a portal, what's a non-blocking wall, and work on it that way. But if I want to convert it back to a regular wall, I can actually just use the convert to blocking wall tool again, and it will remove that and undo essentially what that is and go back to a normal wall. Maybe I want to add the wall point. And you'll see, because I have my grid snapping on, it's snapping to these corners. If I hold down the Alt key, it will move my new point down the wall line, down the wall segment where I want. And I can just hold the Alt key, and I'm going to do that. And you'll see I now have a new point there. And maybe I actually want to take that wall point and I want to move it. So when you use the edit wall points, you have to select a wall first. That's the only real kind of caveat with the move, because you might have 50 walls, and it's a little easier to do it when you select it first. So from here, I now have the wall points. I hold down the Shift key to pan my map, and then I will. I'm not getting. Same kind of bug. I think there's a similar bug that's going on where my tool isn't actually giving me all of my hovers, which is really frustrating. I'll have to look at that and fix that before I release tomorrow. But let me see if I can't turn this off and turn it back on. Let me refresh real quick. Maybe it's something to do with that. Again, this is a preview, so I'm sorry that there's bugs. This is this kind of stuff that helps me walk through things so I can fix them. Yeah, it's definitely some sort of offset or something going on. It won't let me select it. But I was able to move them just the other day, and that's really frustrating that it's not. Okay. So you would simply be able to grab this using this cursor, and you'd be able to move it to a new point, and it would go to where you want it. And again, all the other tools are still working just fine in terms of like, I want to add points. I want to convert this to non-blocking. Maybe I want to turn this one specific wall to non-blocking. Maybe I want to turn it to, a portal, that kind of thing. And it gives me all of these, tools available to me very quickly. And that's pretty much how the wall system is built. Just those simple set of tools should hopefully get you everything you need to be able to build even complex rooms. There is a room over here in which you can see I placed a bunch of walls, and I just followed the pattern of the wall. And just as easily, I can take my token, move it over here. I will re-enable my fog of war, and you can see how it kind of affects everything. And I can't move my token through the wall, and it, blocks light appropriately. I can move my token through here, and you'll see how the shadows work. And this is how it works. This is the whole dynamic vision and fog of war, and gives you a lot of, really easy to use setups. And heck, if you wanted to still use the manual mode, I could just be like, here, I'm going to draw and paint. We'll do it very simply. And bam, you can reveal that whole room to all the players by just manually, triggering that. And it makes it really simple to use. All right, so that's the new dynamic vision, the new wall system. The things to remember is if you ever get lost, you can go into your walls panel here in the map settings, and you can collapse it, but you can also clear all the walls if you want to, which is another tool that's at the very bottom here, which clears all walls, does the same thing as this. And you can very quickly just get rid of every walls if you're, struggling because you didn't like the way that was looking or something was set up and you're like, I'm going to start over. So that's that. Let's move on to the next topic. One of the things that I did, which will be a little less apparent, you can now, when a new player joins a game, I have given some better tooling that kind of describes, how to use Questline, a new kind of welcome screen that kind of shows off what the players can see. And if you go into the help section, I've actually added some of the Questline Tavern items in here so that people can kind of see what's going on. But there's this show getting started guide. The game master, when you're a game master in a game, you're going to see this kind of game master quick start. It's going to give you some basic text on what to do and how to get started. And then it's also going to lead you to the Questline Tavern, which hopefully will get you some more information if you're really looking for kind of a deeper knowledge. The players have a very similar screen as this, and this will be more centric to what they see, what's important to them, and will hopefully help guide players into being able to create their character and starting off and getting in a position that makes the game, playing in the game a little easier. Let's see. Thanks, Grim. I appreciate that. Loving all this. Anna, do you have lights that can act as vision islands at a distance? No. So that is going to be part of the dynamic lighting system that I want to add. Because I've always felt that there's really three pieces to, dynamic fog of war. There is dynamic lights, there is dynamic vision, and then there is the dynamic fog of war. And so one of the next pieces I have on my short to-do list, which is to add in lighting systems so that you can do exactly what you're asking for, so that you can kind of plop a light down and that will reveal an area within as if a token was able to see there. But it also kind of gets into this. So there's this crazy dynamic with vision in video games, right? And when you're dealing with vision, oftentimes, like on a map like this, which is relatively static, maps you can reveal something off in the distance that you really don't want players to see, right? That's a real that's a real troublesome part, because most games control that because the camera can't go over there. In Questline, players can zoom anywhere across the map, right? They can move their map to wherever they want it to be. And perhaps that's something that we should investigate a little bit more, in terms of maybe we should limit player movement, like limit the camera movement so that it can't get away from the token too much. But again, when you're playing, it harkens back to the idea of, I want Questline to be an extension of playing a TTRPG. And when we're playing at a table, we can see the map. Like, we can all see what's going on the map. And yeah, maybe I have some fog of war and I've put some pieces of paper down to stop people being able to see areas. But I want it to feel the same way, because I feel that's kind of an important distinction, where a video game, where a VTT might turn too much into a video game versus playing a TTRPG. So it gets into that kind of gray area of like, how much automation do you really put into a VTT before it stops being a tabletop RPG and becomes just another video game. So that's kind of where I'm always kind of on that line. So it's something I definitely want to investigate, and I definitely need to kind of come up with a better plan. That's why I didn't implement the dynamic lighting system, because when I really started thinking about like, well, how do I reveal these different points on the map for the specific users? Like, do I really want to get into that kind of mechanics? Does that make it too hard for the game master? That's really what it boils down to, is like, how much is it going to burden the game master when they're running their game? That is always one of my key things I try to think of. Like, how much is this tool going to make a game master have to do more work? And whenever it's like in a large amount, I tend to put it off and try to find cleaner ways, again, keep it simple, stupid, because it really, I think, can really frustrate game masters when they're already overwhelmed with building an entire universe and building NPCs and building settings and building plots and building all these things. And then they're like, now I have to build my video game. So it's a catch-22. And I try to avoid, putting all that weight too much on the game master. So yeah, I was talking about the walls and the end pieces of that, and then I was talking about then I was talking about the help section and improving this so that we have access to the Questline Tavern from here, and you can't really see it very well in the stream because I have my face over it. Actually, let me move. I need to unlock that layer so I can move my face. I'm going to move this, and you can see it. Sorry if people were unable to see it very well, but you'll see this in the help section up here. You'll see the show getting started guide, and I can click on that, and that will open up the quick start for the player and for the game master if you want to do that. Let me move my portrait back here. All right. So the next piece is, let me pull up my notes again. Active character pinning. This was kind of a last minute thing that I threw together that I'd kind of thought about a long time ago, and remembered, as I was kind of throwing some stuff together, I was like, hey, you know what? I remember I really wanted the ability for, I've had people ask in the past, like, can I have like a HUD, for my active character so that I can see all my character's relevant stats and all that stuff. And we already have, the whole token tooltip system. And I felt it was, I love the idea of this because this to me is a stat block. Like, this right here is a quick and easy way for me to see all of my characters on the screen. I just have to click on them and I can very quickly see, here's skeleton 1, here's skeleton 2, here's my hit points. It's very easy for me to kind of bounce around with that. But I'd always been reticent about the active player, because there's the idea in Questline where you have an active character, and when you click on the active character portrait down here, you can actually see. Let me move. I think I'm gonna have to move the chat a little bit too. I'm gonna move it up here out of the way. You can see the active character dialogue, and this gives you a list of all the active characters that you can play, and most players only really see a few tokens in here, but as a game master I can see pretty much all of my tokens. Now, when as a player I decide, maybe I'm going to play this character, but maybe I want to act as this other character here for a couple of minutes. Maybe I have like a squire, or maybe I have a companion that I'm going to use. So it's easy for me to just simply be like, okay, I can change my character. But now This new active pinned character allows me to constantly see who my active character is, so that as most players, because you're only really ever going to have one character, I can always see my character at a glance no matter what's going on in the game. And I think that this is probably one of the most useful things that is a quality of life thing that players will find, that when they get used to seeing this, they're going to realize that most of the time they don't even need to open their character sheet. And I think that right there is one of the biggest time savers in the world for games. Whenever I don't have to spend 5 minutes looking through my character sheet because I can see most of what I'm trying to do, I've already solved one of the biggest hurdles in the world, is quick access to the things that I need. And with the character sheet, I still have access to all of my actions. I have, access to my skills. And this comes down to the game type. When you're building um, the game type itself has a whole thing called the tooltip system. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. That's new. I broke something. Let me see if I can pull up a different game type that will work. So here's the quick start. Let me see if I broke something permanently. I did. Oh, no. All right. So I'll have to show that at a later time. But the idea is that you can take your tooltip, just like your character sheet, and you can customize it so that your tooltip is customizable in the way, like, I want to have my bio, and I want to have my hit points, and I want to have my attributes and all these things. So you can put every single component that exists on your character sheet inside of your tooltip. And I thought it would be super helpful for players to be able to always see their active character, which reduces the amount of time that they need to see their full character sheet. And especially in games like D&D, or even Genesis, or Star Wars 5th edition, all these games that have a ton of different stats, but most of the time I'm just rolling a couple of dice. I don't need to open my character sheet every single time. So that was kind of the idea, was this tooltip system is always to reduce that noise a bit. And again, I can just apply damage. I'm going to take 5 points of damage. There you go. Let me go back to my token over here. Maybe I'm going to do 15 points of damage. And again, it just makes it very simple for me to be able to manage my character wherever they are. And it just less noise, more playing. That's my goal. So that's the new system. If you don't like it because you don't want to use it, you can just come over to here. You can open up the toolbar, and there's this pin, unpin active character, and that will simply turn it off. If you don't like it, you don't have to use it. All right, let me move the chat back to here. And all right, let me see, what else do I have in my notes? I talked about the active tool panel. You will see across the board, and if I've missed some, people, please let me know. I'll be happy to fix it. But if I click on the point of interest, it'll tell me what point of interest does. It'll tell me what layer, what I'm pointing to, what current layer I have active. And the same thing, if I go to text tool, it'll tell me what to do. And then if I do fog of war and I turn this on, so you'll see how this, quickly, the active tool really tells me what I'm doing. And in the future, because of the draw wall tool, I'll also be able to put on these little sub tools inside of the, the active tool. And that will make it a little easier for you to use as a game master. A little easier to kind of understand what's going on when you first start playing. All right, let's see. Let's go back to my notes. So there is, I just painted a wall. I'm going to undo that. Close that. Close that. Close that. So on the home page, you might have seen it, but I have a lot of games. Some people might have a lot of games, and there's nothing wrong with that. But what I've done is I've actually added these new badges that are available. And it'll be, you'll either see GM or player, depending on the role that you have in the game. And if you're the owner of the game, you'll also see this owner badge. Now, there are some instances where somebody might have an older game that doesn't have the owner badge. And if you are a game master for that game, you can very easily go into it. I'm going to go into Ironbound because that's the one that Grim, I was helping him with. You can just come right into the game settings, and there's this little link right at the very top of your game settings. It just says claim ownership. And you just click on that. Only game masters can do this. Nobody else can. So if you're the only game master in your game, you're not going to have any problem. You claim ownership, hit the close. I can go out. We'll go look for Ironbound again. And I can refresh my page here. And you will see that you are now the owner of that game. That's just a way that I thought it would be useful to do that. Going forward, you won't ever have to worry about that. If you create a new game, that's automatic. You're automatically the owner. This is just for old games. Let's see here. So these are what those badges are. I thought that it might be cool to have some other badges too at some point. But that was kind of a little addition that I threw in. Right. So improvements to the import. So the new D&D 2024 importer is actually, or I should say, the 2024 stat block for D&D Beyond is actually different than the 2014 version. And I'm going to show that off here real quick. Let me see. Let me see if I can pull it up so I can share an example real quick. Goblin Warrior. I'm going to share the screen. Give me a second while I do that. That's not what I wanted. As the only thing I dislike about Evmux is that I can't share more than one window or page at a time. Find that pretty frustrating because I don't want to share my whole screen. I'm going to turn off my screen share real quick. And I'm going to, here we go, share my Goblin Warrior results here. So maybe, let's search for something else. Let's find another creature, maybe a ghoul. Let's do that. So let's find the ghoul, and we're going to find the new ghoul. And you'll see that if I take a look at this ghoul versus in the legacy, and you'll see that it marks it off as legacy, right? So the old stat block looked like this. The new stat block looks like this. And yes, this looks prettier, and that's great. But this does not import into Questline. And this was kind of a thing that was bothering me for quite a while, and I finally fixed it. So now I can copy this, and so the way you do, you use the importer inside of Questline is you can copy the stat block, quite literally just select it all. You can right-click, hit copy, and then I'm going to share my screen to go back to Questline. Give me one moment. And then I can come into the characters. I can create a new character, and I don't have to do anything here. I can just hit this import tool, and then you'll see this new thing up here says D&D Monster Stat Block 2014 and 2024. This is actually smart enough to know the difference between the two, and so all you have to do is just come in here, and you can paste in your text. You can hit Control V or paste it in, and it's going to dump it down in our grid form or in our kind of row format that we have built in. You'll see how everything is set up. And then all I have to do is hit import. And then it works. So 2024 and 2014 both work. And this is working really well. And that's how easy it is for you to be able to import monsters from D&D Beyond if you play. I have other systems that I want to do this to. I would love to be able to do things like Shadow Dark, or actually I do have the Shadow Dark in there. You can do Shadow Dark, but I want to do things like Dragonbane and other games like Genesis and other systems where you can very quickly, essentially copy and paste stat blocks and bam, goes right in. All right, let me once again go back to my notes and see what's going on. We already talked about, let's see here, the Pathfinder 2e stuff. We already did some in the last stream. And then we have some battle map UX UI improvements. So we have added, we actually have a feature inside of Questline that is probably not used all that often, but I found it very helpful. You can actually take text from anywhere at any time, and you can actually drag it onto your map, and it will literally create a text object. Let me see if I can go find where it went, but you'll see it somewhere. Wherever it went, it should have gone right near where I was. It might be too small to see. Now let me go. It's in the labyrinth layer. So let me go in here. We'll go to here and look at this. And you'll see here, good night, testing. Double click it. There it is. You'll see you can drag text right into your map. So if you have like a long block of text that you have on some other screen, you can literally copy it and drag it onto your page, and it will dump that. I have now made that a GM-only tool because sometimes players, I've seen players accidentally do things like this, where they'll accidentally highlight their whole chat and they'll drag it over and it will paste it on there, and that makes a really frustrating thing. This really is only a GM kind of tool, so that's been fixed. Let's see. Oh, the tool highlighting. So when you are using your measurement tools, one of the things that I never really liked was that it was, when you'd highlight it, it would actually select the entire bounding area of the measurement. And I always found that kind of goofy looking. So now I've fixed it. So if you use your measurement tools, it will render them appropriately. But now when you mouse over them, it only highlights the line instead of the whole area. And it's just a little easier to see. It's a little less obtrusive, like to get in your way, and I can still select it. I can still delete it just like before. Works all the same. This is just a little better for general improvements. Added a couple of bug fixes, and that is up here in the changelog. A couple of small bug fixes, things like fix some with the 2014 D&D stat block. There are some traits and actions and stuff like that that didn't always come through properly, and they would get rendered a little weird. And that has been addressed. So you should have a much cleaner result in that. I cleaned up actually kind of a long-standing issue where some players, when they would load a game, it would not properly show like their character, their initial character, and the menus and all that kind of stuff. And so it should make the experience for new people landing in Questline a little better. And then also there was a bug that Trey had fixed. And that is when you manually edit the round inside of the encounter, it will no longer actually consider that a string. It'll actually try to parse it as a number, and it will properly fix that so it doesn't. Because sometimes it would literally say like 111 instead of like 3. So that should be corrected. And I think that's pretty much it. There are other details. I'm sure I've missed stuff. I've tried to go over all of the details. Uh, the more important things are the new wall system, the new fog of war system, and just some overall general quality of life stuff. And yeah, I was really excited to get this out and to give people the opportunity to um, have the dynamic system that I kind of hoped people could get. The simplicity of it. That's again one of my big goals, is to keep it simple, stupid. You'll hear me say that a million times. And hopefully the dynamic lighting on top of it will add that extra layer of just more feeling a little bit more immersion in your dungeons and your places and your taverns and stuff like that. And I am actually not sorry, Wes. I'm glad you want to try it out. Please do. I'm very excited for people to be able to do this. But tomorrow, hopefully, I will have to do a couple of bug fixes and see if I can't get that cleaned up. But if it doesn't come out tomorrow, it'll come out definitely the next day, because I should just be able to wrap those up and get that out. And we'll definitely love getting this out to everybody and hear feedback from people, because I definitely want to have that feedback. That's really awesome, Grim. I saw some of your mass pause stuff in your stream, and I was pretty excited that you're managing to like put all of mass pause in. And I really hope that we'll be able to get a chance to sit down, and I'll be able to give you some pointers and things that we could do to like really kind of make your character sheets come out a little bit more. And one of the things I definitely want to do for the themes is I want to set up like a modern superhero theme for the character sheet. So there's these kind of like superhero themes, and I want to do like a Wasteland Fallout style, and some other themes that I really have a hankering to do, because I think some games look so cool when you just kind of add that little bit. I guess there is one final thing. You might have seen it. My tokens. We have 2 new token frames. This one is called the Neon Lords. There is a really awesome little TTRPG out there called Neon Lords of the Toxic Wasteland. I'm pretty sure that's what it's called. It always kills me because the name is so long. But it's a really fun and rad like system, and its whole premise is about essentially the apocalypse happens right in the 1990s, and all of the WWF and WWE like super mega wrestling stars, they become the gods of the world, like Thor and Zeus, and it's just awesome. And I spoke to Brian at the New Hampshire Comic Con, and he was pretty amazing. And he and I had a conversation about this, and so I do have support for it in Questline, and was doing some stuff. So I actually had a custom token frame made so that you can add this for your Neon games if you're wanting to play that. And I plan on doing like a whole theme for Neon Lords, and like really kind of giving them a royal class treatment for Questline. And let me see here. And then the other token frame is the new high fantasy frame, which is this. Let me turn off my nameplates. Nope, not that one. And you'll see that this is the new high fantasy frame. And so there's, as I go on, I continue to add more frames so that people have more options. And yeah, it's pretty easy for people to just go in. And if you haven't seen it before, you can modify your token frame by simply coming into here and going to your settings. And you can click on this little button here. And there's this edit frame style. And you can quite literally come in here. You can change the pointers. You can change the frames. You can change the marker, which is the square that fills around the marker, or the hex. You can also have different effects. You can change the color of the effect, and you can change the saturation. So you can do a bunch of different things, and this lets you customize your token in a really, kind of meaningful way to you. And as Questline continues to grow over years, I hope to have hundreds of these little token frames that people have access to, and be like, you want your token to look the way you want it to look, that's great. But that's the new high fantasy, and then we have the Neon Lords. All right, I think that's it. We did have some technical difficulty in the beginning, so I apologize for people who were trying to listen to me, but couldn't see me, couldn't hear me. And we resolved that in post. I will definitely take the time to block out that, and I will edit the video so that you don't have to worry about that. But I think that is going to be it for this evening. I appreciate you. The next update will come out this week, and I will get that to everybody as soon as possible. And I just want to say thank you very much for stopping by. And as I've said before, it is your table, your way, and keep questing. Take care, everybody.